We are back on Inside Politics today. Our guest is Cameron Sexton. He's the Tennessee Speaker of the House. And we're talking about what's going on in the legislature this week, which has been a special session of the legislature, and then the ongoing 112th General Assembly, which begins after that and going into the spring. Mr. Speaker, there's always a lot of concern and interest about a pay raise for teachers. At this particular point, the governor looks like he's going to do about a 4% raise, although it's not all at once. It's more like a 2% later in the year. Teachers have worked awfully hard, had a lot more responsibilities this year due to the COVID. Is that really an appropriate amount, or should it be more than that for teachers?
Well, I mean, it's still a lot of money, and so it's 2% right now, so we'll take effect January 1st, and then hopefully there's another 2% in the next budget year, be a 4% raise at a time when most other people aren't getting pay raises who are in the healthcare community as well. So I think it's an appropriate amount of money. We can continue to have the conversation, but we also have to remember we're matching the local portion as well, meaning the locals won't have to pay that for a little bit. The state's going to pay it for them so that they don't get caught on the flip side. This
special session also has some legislation that will help local school boards plan ahead for their budgeting for next year. Usually state funding is based on enrollment, but that's gotten to be a little bit in flux, if not down, because of the pandemic. Are you changing the funding formula to help local systems on an ongoing basis?
There's no plans to change the funding formula. What I will say is they're wanting us to give them money based on enrollment that they don't have. They want us to overpay for enrollment. We're in conversations with them. You have to remember, they are suing the state for BEP funding, so they don't agree with how we do it in the first place, and they're asking us for an additional $130 million. Not really sure that's equatable. If we do absolutely nothing, the formula, they will get paid based on how many kids they have in their school.
Accountability is another big issue before lawmakers that the governor's asked you to look at. There's always this annual student testing that has been sort of in and out and problematic over the years. Obviously, the test scores were impacted last year. They will again this year be impacted by the pandemic. It looks like you're once again going to hold students, teachers, and the school systems themselves sort of hold them harmless from whatever happens in terms of bad testing. Do we need to go back and relook at the entire testing system? It doesn't seem to have been worth it for Tennessee in terms of having something that's reliable and consistent.
Well, I'm not sure about that. What we're doing here is we're telling the teachers in the schools that they don't have to use the test for their evaluations, but they can use it if they want to, if the test scores are good. We're just not using it to determine their quality of the teaching based on the pandemic. But we're going to continue to do the Tennessee Ready test at the end of the year. We've had problems when it was online. We moved to paper, and we didn't have any problems last year, and we don't expect any this year.
And this is not exactly related to anything that's before the special session, but there's a potential conflict, at least seems to have been developed, between some of the members in your caucus and the State Education Commissioner, Penny Swin. In fact, it's come to the point where I understand there's been a resolution introduced into the legislature that would express no confidence in her as an education commissioner. I can't remember anything like that happening before for any commissioner in the state. What's causing this discord, and do you support it?
Well, I think anybody can file whatever they want to. So if it's one person that wants to file something, they have the ability to. I don't think there's a problem right now in the General Assembly on the House side. I can't speak for the Senate. If that resolution was introduced right now, I don't think it would pass.
Governor Lee's office says they have full and complete confidence in the commissioner. Do you think you don't think it would pass at all if it comes up in either in the state house? You can't speak for the Senate, but you don't think in your house it's likely to pass at all at this point?
I don't think it will. The last 2 weeks, my members have worked very well with her through these education proposals the governor has had, and I think they have renewed confidence in her that she has the capability to lead our state.
There's also a bill up that would allow school boards to make the decision about whether to open or close during pandemics. Right now, that's basically been under state health officials, although they can still continue to consult. If you're not crazy about letting them do that in terms of whether they meet in person or online, why would you give them the right to make the decision about closing one way or the other?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they can close schools based for snow or bad weather or whatever else to the level. You know, I think it goes back to, once again, those independent health boards are bureaucrats. They're not elected, they're appointed, they're not held accountable by the voters. At least in this scenario, the school boards will be held accountable for their action by the voters of that district.
There's also legislation pending. This may come up, I guess, right back during the regular session, about that says any issuance or continuation of the emergency declarations that we saw quite a bit during this pandemic from Governor Lee and from other governors across the state, that now that the legislature would have to be more involved in those, either to approve them on the front end or to renew them after a certain period of time after they've been in place. Is this sort of a criticism of the way the governor has done it, and would this take effect right away in the future if God forbid, we have to have more emergency orders or more pandemics in the future?
I don't think it's a criticism of the governor. I think when we went through this, there's a lot of members that have changed. We've never gone through something like the pandemic. We know about natural disasters and about war. But this situation, you start looking into it, and the governor has unlimited power. We don't think the governor did anything wrong. We don't think he abused the power. But you can't say that about future governors. And so we want to go back and look at it, not so much because what Governor Lee has done, but if you had someone like California Governor Newsom here, Tennessee would be in horrible shape with him as governor, and this would give him unlimited power to do things in our state that the voters wouldn't want him to do.
Just days before the Trump administration ended in Washington, officials there approved a major revision to convert the state's TennCare health care program to a block grant. Were you surprised that this happened so late? It had been pending up there for like a year and a half. And how will this make health care better in Tennessee?
Well, you know, it takes 18 months to negotiate that with CMS. It wasn't like they just started negotiating the last 3 days. It's been an ongoing process for the last 18 months. We did get approval for it. I think what it will do is allow TennCare to focus on the patient's health and their outcomes. It also, we've been saving money because we've been running TennCare efficient and effectively, but we've always had to return that money back to Washington. So through this plan, we're able to take that shared savings and invest it back into the program.
Tennessee Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton is our guest on Inside Politics. Our conversation with him continues after you watch these messages.